Holy Thursday, Batman. It's Holy Thursday. It's the day before Good Friday. If you are watching this, one of two things has happened. One is that I have completed a massive Easter weekend of catching up on a project I started a very long time ago and should have finished a very long time ago. Or two, I have learned a very valuable lesson about committing time I simply don't have to projects for other people. I don't know which one that'll be, but this is the intro, so I suppose watch and find out. So what's the project? Well, the project involves around me being a teacher. I work at a high school, and at the end of 2023, the incoming PE coordinator asked me if I would redo the signs for Sports Day so that they would be a little bit different to what we used to have. We used to have little sandwich board type signs with laminated colours, signage, and they asked for something different and asked if I could laser cut some signs, and I said yes. Unbeknownst to me, a sign this size on our laser cutter takes about 6 hours to cut, and I had 18 of them to cut. The next part was for the relay races, and that involves 32mm oak dowel as per specification. I didn't make it up, that's what was asked for, I said yes. On said 32mm oak dowel has to go one of these. This is going to be slotted in there, and it's going to create a very long 4-foot tall sign for the people judging the relay races. Basically, so you can see from the other side of the oval whether it's green or red to say whether the changeover was good or bad. Again, 6 of those to make up. How hard can it be? It turns out very hard. Yeah. Cutting these slots has been a bit of a nightmare. And then not only cutting them, but now each slot has to be individually sort of tailored to one sign. And then I need to cut this profile out of the base of the sign so it can sit flat in there and be glued together. And really, I think the cutout should be deeper because I think it might break off. So I'm hoping that by having it set in and then maybe putting some epoxy on the side, maybe that'll work. I don't know. These could all break on the first go, and then I'll be making them again for next year. If that happens, I'll just cut them off and reuse them. But that now means I have 6 of these to cut and sand, which I've done. But I also need to paint both sides, but I also need to cut out the little notch on them and cut out 3 more notches in these poles and then glue them together, but not glue where I've painted. So I have to use some masking tape to mask that off, then wait for the paint to dry, then glue it together, then spray some clear over all of them, all before Monday. Well, sorry, Tuesday. How hard can it be? So my method for doing this is shockingly simple. I 3D printed this center finder for round dowels, and I've marked the center. And then what I'm going to do is use my small combination square to mark a line approximately 3mm either side of that center mark. Then I'm going to use this part of the combination square to mark the depth of my cut. And then I'm going to use a combination of a flush trim saw, a Japanese pull saw, and a file, and a small chisel, and anything else I can think of to try and cut that slot and then make it fit the disc. The thing that I never learned is that I commit future time because future time isn't real time yet. And so now the future time is fast approaching, and the actual time that I have now is fast running out. So do yourselves a favor, kids. Don't commit to future time if you're not very good at managing it. I'm terrible at managing my time, so I don't know how this video will turn out, as I've said, but hey, I'm glad you're here for the ride. You might want to consider liking and subscribing, or sharing my plight with others. Thanks.
I picked up the hammer, ready to go, but every time I swing, it's a mighty blow. Splintered wood and broken dreams. My forward gives skills, it's harder than it seems. Measure twice, no once, that's what they say, but no matter how precise, it all goes astray. Crooked lines and uneven edges, like the unlocked disasters they keep lining up in hedges. I'm a punk rock lumberjack with a DIY knack, but when it comes to woodworking, I'm a total hack. Shattered tables and what we share.
Hopefully the neighbours aren't too annoyed because I've only been using hand tools, but I think I'm done with the cutting of the slots in all 6. Now I'm wondering with these parts, do I cut out that whole section or do I just cut flat across? I suppose it depends on how flat my bottoms are of my slots. I think if I cut like that, there's a better chance it will sit in and have more support. So I guess we're going to take these tomorrow and try and find a way that I can cut them. Alright, time to sleep on that. See you when I see you. Good Friday sit rep. It's morning, finished about 11 o'clock last night. These are all cut out, the slots are all cut. Now I need to decide whether I'm notching or whether I'm just flattening and gluing in. I'm not sure. Also haven't decided what glue to use, so you'll find out when I find out.
My woodworking skills is a punk rock affair.
Okay, not sure if you can see that mark, but now if I bring in my disc, I should be able to try and line that up without bumping the camera too much. And then I can scribe around this and it's more central-ish. Can't hurt, right? More central-ish equals more better-ish. After making sure that the disc and handle fit together nicely, I traced around the handle with a pencil. I numbered the disc accordingly so it matched up with the handle and used some painter's tape to mask off the area that I would use for gluing later on. With all of the discs prepared and numbered, it was time to spray them. I'm rattle canning this. If you are rattle canning your projects, I highly recommend getting one of these Rust-Oleum paint spray gun things. It does make it a little bit easier. You don't have to rattle can. If you have an air compressor and you want to do it that way, please feel free to. So it occurs to me that I haven't really talked about how we did laser cutting. So these are the laser cutters. They're Darkly Labs in Blazer 2s with a filter system, and I'll quickly show you how we'll set up the pieces to cut. By the way, this is Jim from the future talking to you hopefully at the start of the video. Cool. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is get my blank. Here it is, and this is getting my blank piece of wood, not playing around with blankety blanks. I've got to line it up with the origin lines down here, that's pretty good, pretty good. Alright, you got to shut the door. There's a couple of little, what do you call them, pogo pins that make contact with the little contacts on the lid. These can get quite dusty and you have to clean them off, otherwise the laser will think that you do not have it have the lid shut and it won't start. So a way around that is weigh the lid down ever so slightly, gently, and that way no one can pick it up by mistake. And the other thing you can do is turn on the extraction, which creates a vacuum and pulls the lid down as well. Oh, that was a lot of Blair Witch camera work. Alright, over to the computer. This is the design that's going on there. So this is in Lightburn. I'm sure lots of people on YouTube that buy a laser cutter get given Lightburn anyway. What we need to make sure that we've got our material thickness set to 6mm for the MDF and the support is 10mm. I'm only going to do one pass at that speed, 100% power. The text is going to be called an offset fill, so it's going to kind of draw around and then fill it in as it goes. It looks really nice, and the image will be solid. The issue that we've got is if we do this whole thing in one go, the laser will start down here and it'll go back and forth and it'll travel the whole length of the piece doing the whole lot, and it'll take about 6 hours to do. Whether that's just a quirk of this laser or a quirk of the software or the way we've got it set up, the way around it is to do these one part at a time. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut the shot putter out first. There he goes. Then I'm going to turn on the laser, turn on the extraction. Okay, now hopefully I'm going to click go and it's all going to work. Through the wonders of editing, here is the shot put sign starting to come together. I'm going to stay
until the text is done tonight. Then I'm going to come back tomorrow to put the shot putter on there. We never leave these unattended, so I don't really fancy staying around until 7 o'clock tonight, so I'm going to let this go, do the text, and then I'll do the rest tomorrow. There you go, that's finished for tonight. Turn it off and come back tomorrow to finish off the other one.
The new signs were actually made out of the remnants of the old signs, so I had to heat up and scrape off the sticky back Velcro, plus any of the laminated pieces, and then do some other work to reclaim the wood for these signs. After the Velcro dots were all removed, I also sanded back some of the old finish so the new pieces could be glued to the old boards, and then I also decided that I would try and fill in the nail holes or screw holes to try and make things look a little bit nicer. But this proved to be a little bit of a waste of time later on. Alright, I'm having serious doubts that I can get these things done. And I'm also having these horrible feelings that I needed to do 2 of most of the signs. Just I think from looking at the laminated signs that I took off these boards. I'm going to go with what I've got. I was confident that when I was laser cutting them that I was checking them off a list. I can only hope that that's right. So, very nervous, very dusty, very stressed about this, but keep plugging on, right? Okay, I'm going to go and wash my hands and maybe get a drink. Not too much to say here. I put some glue on the back of them, push them down, and then put some clamps or some heavy things on them, and I tried to glue up as many as I could. Yeah, rinse and repeat. On Saturday morning I came into the shed with a little bit of renewed confidence. I thought maybe I'd broken the back of it. I could see most of the signs had dried or were drying. Then it came time to tackle the stakes. It actually has to be said that I need to thank Colin Canet and Woodwork Web for the jig that I used to cut the 15-degree angles on the stakes. It just made it so much safer and more repeatable. All I had to do was measure halfway on the board, clamp it to my miter saw, and then just cut, flip it over, cut the other side. Great jig. I highly recommend you check it out. In fact, I'll try and put a link to it in the description. Before I committed to cutting up my hardwood stakes, I used a piece of scrap plywood to first mark the halfway point on the board, clamp it to my miter saw, and my miter saw has that shadow line thing where you can see where the blade's going to cut. I don't know, maybe yours got lasers or something, but that's what mine has. So I had to go with that, cut both sides, and then took it outside to bang it in the ground and check if it worked. Ooh, vampires beware. And after a little taparoo, it seemed to work just fine, so yay! Working stakes. But of course that means on to cutting out the hardwood stakes. Because my stakes were 50mm wide, I marked 25mm, put them in my jig, and then cut the 15-degree angles. Like a lot of things in this project, it just became a matter of rinse and repeat. Although, due to the length of some of the stakes, they were a little bit wobbly, so I used a second clamp just to clamp the stake to the side of the jig. Otherwise it might tip, and my hands are dangerously close there, so I wasn't keen on that. Okay. Situation report update. The markers have been painted, bit of spot left to glue them. I've also cut, the vampires beware, I've cut the stakes to go on the back of the signs. I'd like to run a chamfer over these, or a round over just over them to make sure they don't hurt people. What else? Most of the signs are glued up. I'm just starting to kind of feel the physical effects of stressing out over this project, so on Easter Sunday I decided I too would rise, but instead of celebrating Easter I decided to rise, go to the shed and glue up the relay changeover marker signs, which were a little bit tight and required some, what's the technical term, finagling to get them to fit, but it all worked out in the end, as you will see.
use my track saw to cut off the excess from all the signs.
Hammers pounding and stars in the air will make a masterpiece beyond compare.
Okay, sit rep again. It is Sunday afternoon-ish. I've just sprayed all the signs and cut them all down. So this is the appropriate size, and these are the stakes. Vampires beware. That I've cut. So now I just need to make the stake the appropriate size for the sign, and I'm thinking about 450 mil. That way it's got a little bit of space to go into the ground, but also a little bit on the top, so that when they get bashed in, they damage the stake, not the sign. I'm also thinking of putting a 3D printed cap over the top if I get time.
I measured in 20 millimeters from the ends, so I would have an equidistant measurement to put my screws in either side, so I'd be far enough away from the edges that I wouldn't split the stakes. On the one line, I would measure 70 millimeters down from the edge and 270 millimeters down. That would be my top and bottom screw. On the other line, I'd measure 170 millimeters down, and that would put my 3 screws evenly into the backing board of the sign. As they were hardwood stakes, it was over to the drill press to drill out the 3 pilot holes on all, I believe it was 14 stakes at the moment, but that proved to be a miscalculation on my part as well. Decided to countersink them so the stainless steel screws didn't split the stakes. After drilling 42 holes and countersinking 42 holes, I decided to go outside and round over 112 edges.
Alright, Sunday night, had a little bit of a break. Signs have had 1 coat of varnish, hopefully there'll be another coat. The stakes are all cut, routed, drilled and countersunk. So now I'm going to test out the Arnott's 50% less sugar shortbread creams with my cuppa, and attach some signs to the stakes and then see how we go at the end of that. Alright, see you in a bit. Now,
there was some clever measuring to work out where I would need to measure back from the centre, and then I used my square to basically hold that line at 90 degrees. I would butt the stake up to it, pilot hole, and then ram in a stainless steel screw with my little 12 volt drill, which was probably struggling a little bit, but I got there eventually. Something I did learn from this project is about systems and working out jigs and methods for doing things in a repeatable way, but also trying to maintain safety when you're doing it, because when you have to do the same operation 10, 20, 30, 40 times in a row, that becomes really key. You don't want to drift into autopilot, you want to make sure you're being safe.
well, there you go. Apart from another, a little bit of sanding on the back of these stakes, Jarrah one because I ran out of oak. I've routed over the corners so that hopefully whoever picks them up doesn't hurt themselves. Probably another coat of clear on them. And then hopefully the panic will wear off that I have not forgotten any that were on the sign. When I was laser cutting them, I was ticking them off the list, so hopefully I've got them all. And if I don't, well, we'll have to just make do on the day, and there'll be some in the bag, I guess, for next year. This has been a really stressful build for me. Not a great experience. People might be wondering, why do it then? I don't know if you've met anyone that's suffered any mental health conditions. It's really difficult for somebody who doesn't really value their time or skills to say no to someone. Particularly if it's someone that they see as really talented, very valuable, a leader, their boss. If your time, in your own opinion, has no value, you'll give it away. So I suppose maybe I've done it because I hope that somebody will see this and, will affirm that I have skills and value. Maybe they won't. But it's not as easy as just being able to say no. I really wish I could. I just can't. So, yeah, a little bit more tomorrow, a little bit of sanding, but probably they could go out as is, and I would actually like to spend some time with my family for the remainder of Easter. And that's not to make the person that asked me to do this feel bad, just the way it is. I've had lots and lots of opportunities to get this done over the Christmas holidays and stuff, but I've just had other things on my plate, so here it is. It wasn't that I saved it up for Easter or someone sprung it on me. They actually asked me to do it last year. We had laser cutters breaking down and all sorts happening, and you know, the length of time it took to do these and all sorts of other stuff, but I can at least say I'm proud enough that I got it to this stage. Whether or not they actually go in the ground or not out at the athletics field, I've got no idea. I built them to the specification I was given, and taken you on the journey as well. So there you go. Hopefully not too much more whinging now. I'd like to actually move on from this. I've got one other project over here that I need to finish off, and then I really want to crack on with the Dalek. I want to get that done because the Spectacular's coming up in August, and I'd like Frank to be there because Colin really needs to retire. So it's about 8 o'clock on Easter Monday. I went this afternoon and dropped all the signs off to the school, and I'm 3 signs short. So I don't need them until Friday. I don't know whether this next part is going to make it into the video, maybe. Or maybe if I do show you how I made the signs, I'll just put that in the start for how I made the signs. So if you're watching this now and you've already seen how I made the signs, it's only because I was 3 short when I went and delivered them. So, lucky I made that jig. Anyway, that's it from me, properly this time.